That's okay.
So, welcome, Pathfinders. As we start your session, we are going to have a prayer with you. Okay, so let's bow our heads and say a prayer. Father, thank you that we can learn and we can have fun as we do the learning. And we want to thank you for all the adventurers and now as they leave and we welcome the pathfinders. We want to invite your Holy Spirit to guide us. It is not by might nor by power. It's not by our strength that we can do anything. And so we invite your Spirit to lead, to help Togo and Kerry, and to help Bogdan as he comes on after to do their honors. Thank you that you are going to guide them with your Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so let's go to it, Auntie. So this is agriculture. Agriculture. Togo, tell us about it. I must tell you guys, Togo has said a lot about being an agriculturalist, but I won't spoil it. She's always
Hey,
been proud about all her agriculture when she was in Lower Gweru, but we'll hear it from her. So go on, Togo. Thank you.
good afternoon, boys and girls. I am so happy to be with you this afternoon. And like Pastor NJ has said, my name is Mutoko Ndlovu. I live here in Scotland, and I present with me today Kerry. Kerry, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Kerry and I also live in Scotland. And at the moment, I'm studying horticulture with the Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh.
Yeah, so we can't. We are so happy actually to be your hosts and share this with you today. So without further ado, I will just explain what agriculture is. Some of you may know already, especially maybe the older ones. So it is a process of growing plants, crops, and also raising animals for food, other human needs, and for economic gain as well. What are the requirements for this honor? There's quite a lot, really. You will learn today the components of soil and why soil is important to plants. You will be explained the difference between clay, loam, and sandy soils. You will get to know at least a crop that grows really well in any of those soils. And we will go through with you how the germination process happens and what happens at each stage. You will also learn how plants obtain nutrients and convert them into food that you then eat. Explain a little bit about the difference between what is primary, secondary, micronutrients, and micronutrients. We also will look at some weeds that grow in our communities and also maybe in other parts of the world as well, and how to eliminate them using either natural or chemical methods. We will show you a little bit or a few insects and diseases and pests, insect pests that are problematic for farmers. And we will really tell you how they affect the farmers and also how to eliminate those insects and pests and how to prevent their occurrence. And we will talk a little bit about sources of agricultural weather, why it's important for farmers. We will look at soil erosion, how can it be prevented. We will go through plowing, cultivating, harrowing, disking, draining, irrigation, harvesting, and we will give you some homework as well on some birds and how you can go away and possibly do a bit of planting for yourself and maybe visit a few websites and talk to a few people that you know maybe in your local communities that are farmers and get to know. So as you can see, there's quite a lot for us to cover in an hour. So we will literally we'll try and move at a fast pace as much as we can so that we stay within our time. So let's just go into it. Maybe just the very first thing, let me ask you a question. Who was the first farmer in the whole wide world? You can type in your answers, those on Facebook. You can type in those on YouTube. You can also share with us. Let us get to know who was the very first farmer. What are the answers
Oh,
that we're getting, Pastor NJ?
ho, ho, ho. So, Antim Togo, we have quite a few answers that have already come in. Jeremiah is saying God, and Ryan is saying God, and so is Sophie and Wendy. And we've got Romeo saying Adam and Eve and God. All
Right, okay. Let us see the answer. The answer is Adam. God created the world and he made Adam and Eve, but the very first man was Adam. He was put in charge of the Garden of Eden and all the animals. Good. Now we will ask a few questions to Kerry, who will share with us. Kerry, can you let us know what are the components of soil?
Okay, so obviously you do have solids, liquids, and gases. But essentially, how soil is made up, it's made up of about 45% minerals, about 5% organic matter, which is things like decomposing plant or animal material. It could be manure, compost, anything like that. And then the other 50% is roughly divided about 25 and 25% with water and air. And
Well,
that's
thank you.
that.
Oh, thank you, Kerry. But why is it important to
So
have
it's important.
soil to
Yeah,
plants?
it's important because obviously the roots of plants, they need something to stabilize them. So it helps them in that way. It helps the plant's roots access the water and the nutrients. But also soil is a home for all the microorganisms as well, which actually in turn, they help break things down, which in turn helps the plants seek
Mm.
out these nutrients. So it's a whole little ecosystem. So soil is
Wow.
important.
I'm quite intrigued at how much soil is so important to plants, really. Um, Next question would be the types of soils.
Mhm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the first one I'll just go with obviously with the clay. So clay is it can be quite a sort of waterlogged soil, especially in winters if we have a lot of rain. But equally in the summer it can completely dry out and crack, and it can sometimes be very hard to actually cultivate and grow things in. It's because the particle sizes of clay it's so minute. It's such a tiny. Each clay particle is so tiny, and because of that, there's not an awful lot of space in between for the air and the water. So the best thing you can do is add in a bit of organic matter, like I was talking about, and that just loosens it up and aerates it. But the things that you can try and grow in clay, um, things like brassicas, so that would be like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, that kind of thing, that will tend to do reasonably well in a clay soil.
Oh.
Um, Sandy soil, that has a lot larger of a particle size and it tends to be more free draining. So the water will just kind of go through it. But that also means that it doesn't have a high water retention. So sometimes certain plants would dry out. Again, you can add in a bit of organic matter and that'll just kind of level things out a bit if it's losing too much moisture. But things that you could grow in sandy soil would be things like root crops like carrots or parsnips, also potatoes as well. They would do pretty well in that kind of soil. And then loam is kind of like the ideal soil, I guess, because it's got a little bit of clay, sand, and silt. So it's got a variety of different particle sizes. And that means that it is quite a free draining soil, but it also will hold enough water to get to the plants. And the things that you can grow most things, to be honest, in a loamy soil, but things like onions, tomatoes, beans, anything like that, you can grow in a loam soil.
Wow, that actually explains why my carrots didn't do very well last year. That must mean my soil is probably a clay soil, and I was trying to plant carrots that were supposed to actually go inside the soil, isn't it? Because they grow
Yeah,
going down.
that's the thing. Yeah, it's the roots. And sometimes that's the thing. If it's a too stonier soil as well, if they hit stones, then they just don't like it and they kind of fork out. And instead of just having one root, they kind of
Yeah.
almost like have legs. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I had
I
a few,
understand.
I actually had a few like that last year.
There were interesting shapes of the carrots there. Very
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
shapes.
It's a new variety of carrot, it's got legs. So
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, we've got more questions to ask. But before we can continue with the questions, I thought we will talk about the germination process. And so, you know, if you look at that, boys and girls, you start off with a seed. With any plant, you need a seed. If you put it in the soil, like Kerry has said, the soil has minerals, got organic matter. You need the water. Your seed starts to germinate. So you start off with a little embryo, and then it goes into, what you can see there, the radicle, and then it pops out now out of the soil, and it starts to, that cotyledon falls off, and then it starts to receive some sunlight, and a process that Kerry will tell us about in a few minutes. But I would like you, boys and girls, to actually plant a seed. You will actually plant at least 4 seeds that you will monitor this process. So I want you to actually be able to notice this process at every stage of your plant. And you will record what you have noticed and compare all the seeds that you have planted in each plant pot, what the differences are. Even maybe the germination time, could it be different? And how does it come out? What does the plant look like when it kind of gets its shoots out? So that's what you will do. So now we are here, Kerry, that our plant has kind of grown out of the ground. Tell us a little bit about how do then plants obtain the nutrients from the soil and make food that we then eat.
So basically, like I'd kind of said before, obviously it's taking up those nutrients. So it uses those nutrients in all different ways. Kind of depends, it'll vary a little bit from nutrient to nutrient how it uses it. For example, in the case of nitrogen, it basically they'll use the nitrogen to help producing enzymes and proteins. Or with potassium, it actually activates these enzymes, which basically helps aid with photosynthesis, which is obviously that's the process which plants use, where they basically take the light energy from the sun, and then they turn it into chemical energy, which is in the form of glucose or sugars. So they use that, and then obviously that helps the plant grow big and strong, and if it's got fruit or veg or whatever it's producing, and that's how it produces the food that we then eat.
Wow, amazing process, isn't it?
Yeah,
And how
really.
about those? What are the primary then? What is primary, secondary, um, and
Yeah,
micronutrients?
the nutrients, yeah. So your primary nutrients would be nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And they're the primary ones because they're the ones that are needed kind of in the highest quantities. They're kind of not the most key, but they really are key to a plant's success. So you would you would need those in the biggest quantities. Then your secondary nutrients are things like the calcium, the magnesium, and sulfur. So they really do need those, but just not in such high quantities. And then your micronutrients, again, they do need them, but with these, it's in much, much smaller quantities that you would need those. So that would be things like iron, boron, and copper as well. So yeah, that's basically how they kind of group them into different categories.
Yeah. So I'm kind of imagining that because the soil is so rich, isn't it, with all these nutrients, that you will then get other things growing alongside the plants
Yeah,
that will
definitely.
also want to get those nutrients and kind of compete with the plant.
Yes.
What about the weeds? What are some of the common weeds then that you can find trying to compete for these nutrients?
Yes, that is a problem, as you say. Like, obviously, they'll take some of the nutrients. So that is why basically a weed is the wrong plant in the wrong place, sort of thing. So if obviously you're wanting to grow a specific type of crop, then you're best to get rid of these. So things like dandelions, that's always a major one. They are quite tough to get out. You're best to try and, if you can, dig them right out. They've got a really big, long tap root, and if you can, try and get all of that out, because they're perennial, so they will just keep coming back year on year. And if they set seed, then as well, they will spread quite easily because the seeds can just blow on the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So with those, either dig them out, as I say, you can use chemicals. I'm the type of person I generally don't advise too much chemicals, just
Mm-hmm.
purely because it can actually, things like, say, you could use Roundup on the dandelions, but unfortunately, it might not just kill that, it could end up killing a plant that you want to keep. And also, it can sometimes not be very beneficial to other wildlife. So you've sometimes, if you want to use a chemical, you've sometimes got to weigh up, if it's worth it, or if you can do it yourself. Then there's things like hairy bittercress. That is also very persistent, and it can actually, because it self-seeds so easily, you can have several generations of that plant in one growing season. So again, just try and hoe them out, or just pull them out, fork them out, because that can take, like I said, that can take nutrients from crops that you're actually wanting to grow. Chemicals, you can use herbicides like glyphosate rather, but again, with that one, some countries have even banned that. So it's one of those kind of things that if you can not use it, then that's probably better. But in serious situations, if you're totally overrun, then you could use that too. So there's dock leaves, like we've got up on the picture, and that one's another perennial, and a little bit like the dandelion, that's got a very big, thick tap root that goes right down into the ground. So again, you could take quite some time to get all the roots out. Once they take hold, they really do take hold. So if you can get them when they're really young and just dig them right out, that is the best thing you can do. But again, also like the dandelion, you could use a chemical spray like Roundup or Resolver or something like that. There's also couch grass as well that we've got up on the picture. That is actually a particular problem on my allotment. And it spreads so easily. It spreads by its little rhizomes, which is like the roots kind of under the soil, and it just will take over an area so quickly, so easily. And again, it's just taking the nutrients away that you'd like for other things. So you're best to, if you can, try and either use like a rotavator and kind of like chop it up and then bury it really deeply so that it doesn't get the light to it. Or you can also try and just keep forking it up, dig it or fork it up, and then expose it to the air and keep doing this maybe every few weeks, something, or every couple of weeks, something like that, just to really try and get on top of it. And that'll weaken those rhizomes that are under the ground. And eventually it will just not have enough energy to actually keep going. So if you just keep at it, it will get rid of it. And again, with that, you can use glyphosate, but I would say if you can, just try and, do it by hand.
Dig it out.
Yeah, just dig it out. It is a bit more hard work, but you know what? It's exercise. It's good fun. So, and then another one is bindweed. So that climbs up other plants and it can cover them completely, which obviously will block out their light, and other plants will just completely suffer and probably eventually die. With that, if you just dig out the roots, be persistent. You can install a barrier to stop it kind of creeping with its roots. Or you could even use some black plastic. If you get that just when it's kind of young, and just put it under the black plastic just to, again, shade out any light to it, that should hopefully eventually kill it off if it's over it for long enough. So you can try something like that. And glyphosate, again, you can use that too. I've got a few other examples as well. Would you like me to do those too?
Yeah, maybe we can stick to this for now, and the Pathfinders will go and look for find some more weeds. And I found out that while the farmers don't like these plants, and the plants don't like these plants, but they actually have some good uses.
They really do.
All of them, these ones are on the screen, are actually edible.
Yes, that's what
I've particularly made dandelion tea. You can actually make dandelion coffee from its roots, roast them and make dandelion coffee. And actually dandelions are very good, very, very high in vitamin C as well. And I found out that the dock leaves, they usually grow next to the nettles because the nettles sting. And so they're actually used to kind of soothe that sting if you get bitten by the nettles. And also they soothe blisters and burns. And they're also very high in vitamin C. And actually, I found in North America, they have about 25 species of dock leaves. Isn't that amazing?
Wow. Now that I didn't know that. That's amazing.
I found that information very interesting. And
see, I think that's the thing. A lot of people do just see these things like the dandelions, like you're saying, as just a weed. But actually, I mean, they are really good for bees as well, because they're an early source of, pollen, but also a nectar. But also, like you say, a lot of them actually can be edible. So maybe it's just that we need to kind of change our thinking about some of the weeds, or just allow a little wild patch, something like that.
Yeah, true. And I thought that, when I was looking at hairy bittercress, I thought it must be bitter. But I actually found out it's not bitter at all. It's actually like a herb. And it's actually very nice spice. So if you find it out, get it for mom and dad, and, try some hairy bittercress in your stew.
Yeah, even nettles as well. I mean, obviously you'd have to be careful when you collect them. But I mean, I've made a soup before. It's very like spinach. So
yeah, I've made some tea. Nettle tea is very nice, very tasty.
It's really nice. So yeah,
and the dock leaves, apparently, when they're still young, you can actually get the young leaves and put them in salad. But when they're bigger, they're a bit bitter. But yeah,
small leaves. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it looks like Romeo is in good company here, because Romeo, he's seen all these before, and he has a lot that we are learning from him down here as well. So Romeo, thank you for those comments. So guys, if you have any questions that you would like to pause, just put them on the chat. Do the same for those who are joining on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Actually, just before we move out of this slide, I've got an interesting fun fact about bindweed. That if you don't have soap and there's bindweed around, the leaves, you can actually use them as soap. There we go. Now, tell us about some of the common pests and diseases that we find in the farming world.
Yep. So one would be this vine weevil, which is kind of a problem for gardeners and for farmers as well, because it affects roots of plants. So the larvae, which are obviously the young of the vine weevil, they eat the roots, whereas the adults will eat leaves. It generally does affect more kind of ornamental plants, but it can also affect crops as well. So the best thing you can do with these is kind of pick off the adults if you see them, check your compost to see that there's not any larvae or anything hiding, remove any debris, so again they've got nowhere to hide, and there are chemicals which you can use, but if you can, again, just try and kind of do do it by yourself sort of thing. And they also affect camellias and rhododendrons.
Right.
So that is my first one. The next one, which really can affect crops, would be the peach potato aphid. Although it says peach potato, it's not just peaches and potatoes that it affects. It can affect brassicas, which obviously I've mentioned before, like the broccoli, cauliflower, that kind of thing. Peaches, potatoes, but also lettuce and tomatoes as well. So it can affect quite a variety of different crops, and it kind of distorts the plants, and it also can spread diseases, because the aphids, with its little mouth part that it kind of sticks into the stem of the plant, by doing that, if it's come from another plant that has a different, like a virus or whatever, it can just transmit it, and then that goes on and on and on, and the more plants it visits, obviously the more it spreads. So that's why it can actually also be quite dangerous. And if you plant garlic or marigolds next to it, usually the smell will actually deter it from coming near the crops that you're wanting to protect. You can also spray it with garlic spray. You can just make up a spray. I often do that actually in the summer for a lot of my plants and my crops. So if you just literally boil up some garlic in some water, and then just strain out the garlic and just put it in a spray bottle, and you can spray crops that way to protect them. And then that leads me into another one, which is actually cucumber mosaic virus, which actually kind of links to the peach potato aphid, because, as I say, that's kind of one of the ways in which it's transmitted. It affects over 700 different plants, obviously cucumbers, but tomatoes, peppers, all different crops. So it's actually potentially quite a dangerous one. As well, there's no actual chemicals at the moment to control it. So the best bet is to just obviously try and eliminate the aphids themselves through the methods that I've just talked about. Remove weeds. Also, if you can practice crop rotation, which is basically where you have your different groups of veg. So you'd have things like legumes, which are your beans and peas. You would have your group, which is your brassicas, and then say maybe root vegetables and say onions, something like that. And if you have those groups and keep rotating them around your different areas of your farm or your different beds, then that kind of limits the amount of pests and diseases, hopefully, that should kind of survive and then spread, because you're not just growing the same crop year on year in the same space.
Yeah, that's interesting, Kerry. I found something interesting about this one, the locust. Boys and girls, if you know about the 10 plagues in the Bible, I wonder if that's why the Lord actually sent the locusts, because they are described as the most notorious insects to destroy plants, because they really eat the plants.
Oh, they do.
And I found out a fact that actually, if they had to be eating humans, if a swarm of locusts, if they had to eat humans, they could literally eat about 35,000 humans a day.
Oh, wow. I mean, they do. They just decimate things, don't they? So I could believe that.
Yeah. Well, our time, let's move on. A question to the boys and girls. What is the farmer's best friend? What would you say? You can guess, you can, if you know, let us know. What is the farmer's best friend?
Okay, guys, let's hear it. What is a farmer's best friend? So we've got Jaden saying it's rain. Jeremiah thinks it's a swarm of. Oh, okay, something different. Romeo is talking about tools. Jaden comes back with cow, and then we've got good soil.
Good soil. Yeah.
So we've got all those different ideas there.
Well, maybe I should have said an insect or something like that, or an animal. But yeah, a farmer's best friend is this one here. And what is that? An
Earthworm.
earthworms.
So
And why are
actually,
they farmer's best friend?
yeah, somebody has written that.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
So there we go. They improve the soil. That's great. So now, boys and girls, we look at one of the things that are really important for farmers is weather. And why is it important that the farmers should know whether it's raining or it's windy or all that? So really they look out for weather forecast so that can help them to plan, you know, whether they should go out and till the land, or they should go out and plant, or they should go out and harvest, right? So I'm sure farmers each and every night, they are looking out for the weather for the next 2 weeks or for the next few days, so that they can make those decisions. And there are some negative effects of weather really on farming. And, you know, Kerry did share with us, with me particularly, really, that rainfall is one of them. And how is that negative, Kerry?
Well, sometimes obviously if you get too much rain, things can flood. And if you've got obviously soils, like I said, like clay, that can sometimes end up being waterlogged. So that's not such a good thing for farmers.
Yeah, so we have high temperatures as well that can dry the soil and cause a lot of, you know, cracking in the soil or compaction, and the wind can cause soil erosion. Snow, you know, particularly frost, kind of, you know, freezes the plant cells, and it's not good. It's damaging really to the plants. Okay, now we go into soil erosion. You know, what is soil erosion? It's the natural process when, you know, like the weather, wind, water, and frost, and, you know, flooding and all that displaces the upper layer of the soil. And that is not good really for farmers, because, you know, that soil structure can change, can lead to, you know, reduction of nutrients, what we talked about earlier. And so let's kind of look at a little bit of an explanation of what soil erosion is. And at this point, I should stop mine, and Natalie will share, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, that'd be
So
great.
let's switch over to
Let's have a
Natalie.
look.
Keep the comments coming, guys, and
All right.
your questions as well. I mean, we've got Kerry here. There's no question in agriculture that we will not be able to answer. Usually we can say, we'll find out and come back to you. But guys,
I'll try
Kerry's
my
here.
best.
All right. Can we see the screen, everyone?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Natalie.
Okay, I'll go to presentation mode. There we are. All right, let's go.
So what is soil erosion? I thought to answer that question, I will illustrate it. And so with me here, I have 3 types of soil. I have on my container here, soil, loose soil. In this container, I have soil with leaves in it. In this container, I have soil with a plant in it. And so I would like you to watch closely what happens to each soil when I pour water on it. So I have my glass to collect my water from here. And so let us pour in this one and see what happens. It's filling up. There is our water coming through. Okay, there we go. The soil is soaking up the water, and the water is coming through. Right. Okay, look at that. Okay, so let's just wait a little bit until we collect enough water. I think that will do. Don't worry, I have a card box containing my water there, so I will put this one here. Okay, let us go to bottle number 2. And so this is the soil with leaves in it. Let's see what happens to our water in that one. Okay, going to take a while, but we're patient because we want to see this soil erosion, what it's all about. Okay. I think that will do. All right, maybe a little bit more, so it can be the same amount with the other one. That should do. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's number 2. And now we come to number 3 with the plant in it. Let us see if this works. So how shall I pour this one? Right, okay, so I will pour it in there. And let's see what happens to this water. Yeah? Yeah. I think that will do. Right. Okay, that should be enough. Okay, so I have 3 water here. This is number 1 for this one. That is number 2, this one. And that is number 3. And so I would like you, okay, let's move this one here. So, right. I would like you to pay attention to all the 3 water here. You can tell that this one has more dirt and just a little bit of dirt in this one and clear water here. And why is this so? The one with the plants has roots. If we can take out our plant here, right, you can see that we've got roots in our plant. And so these roots are very, very important in holding the soil together. So if I can just take out a little bit of this and show you, if I squeeze that, you can kind of see the water there. So our roots do collect the water. And so farming, agriculture, plants are really, really important for reducing soil erosion. Yet when we look at the soil that has no plants, most of the soil has been eroded. Well, I hope that has explained a little bit of what soil erosion is, and we will continue with our presentation and skip that. So how do you reduce soil erosion? Obviously, adding organic matter, crop rotation, contour, grassways, waterways, and what is that? That is what grassway waterway looks like. So the farmers would actually make something like this where they will put grass so that when the water falls, they're able to kind of manage that the water does not erode the soil in this way. Then you've got contour farming, which is done in most parts of the world, really, such that no soil is lost. Most of the soil we wanted for our plants. And crop rotation is another one, where you don't plant the same thing the following year, but you keep moving your plants to different ways. So that's how you can try and manage it. And so a fun fact, not a fun fact, this is a fact, literally, that, in Northern Ireland, they have realized that there is literally so much increased coastal soil erosion, and that could lead to landslide. And so the National Trust charity has dedicated that they will at least try and plant 20 million trees by the year 2020. So, you can be part of that in your own communities. Let's come to how do you get to be a farmer and some of the stages that are, related to farming and what you may need to know. Plowing, this is when, it's virgin land. You need to plow and till the land. And the purpose for this is so that you can bring fresh nutrients to the surface by burying some weeds of the previous crops or previous grass or whatever it is, if it wasn't farmed at all. And so you're allowing that soil to break and to aerate so that it can be able to retain the moisture. And then you follow it with harrowing, which is a process of removing dead thatch or vegetation, leveling up the soil, breaking up your soil a little bit, loosening your soil a little bit. And then you go to disking, which is and another stage that kind of, it's almost like a rough finish really, to help even break more soil and make it even smoother so that the soil structure can be easier to work with and so ready for your plants. Then you cultivate and you're ready to plant. And you can also then cultivate when some weeds come through. You can continue to remove those weeds by cultivating. And then we have the draining system, which is actually artificial removal of water from the land if there's too much water, because too much water as well isn't that great for your plants. So you can do that. That's what the farmers do. And then irrigation, as we said, that our plants need water. And so sometimes the earth can be so dry that your plants can die. And so you need water. So periodically, the farmers will kind of irrigate in this way. But there's many other ways as well that are used for irrigation that are more friendlier, like drip irrigation, where they literally put through so the water just comes through in drips and drabs, and it's not that devastating. Then when your plants are done and they're ready, we go out and harvest. So you go out and you collect your plants and you go out and sell if you are doing your farming for economic reasons, or if you are doing for just your own food at home, or you can share with your neighbors and all that. So now let's look at some of the harvest around the world. And I want you to tell me, or rather guess as well, where you think this harvest is from.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Glastium Corn. I don't know if any of you have seen this Glastium Corn, but I thought it looks so beautiful. Where do you think this is from?
Okay, so Romeo. Oh, are you going to give it an answer? I thought that was an answer. Where do you think this Glastium corn comes from? And Jeremiah says India.
India?
Oh, actually, Romeo said India.
Well, Glastium Corn is America. It's actually Oklahoma, America. That's where it was engineered. And how about this one? This is rice.
Okay, so guys, where do you think that rice harvest is coming from? And we have quite a number of answers here, Toko. We've got Thailand, we've got China and Japan.
Wow, you are very right. It is China. How about honey? If you have a brother who is an adventurer, you will know that I love honey. So I could not put honey there.
Yes, honey. We all know that, honey.
So where do you think honey is from? This particular one, picture.
Okay, Jeremiah thinks that one is from England.
Okay, well, this is New Zealand. That's where they do manuka honey, which is very, very nutritious and very good for our bodies.
I like how we are talking about agriculture, but you just needed to get honey in there somehow, somewhere, for harvesting
It's kind
honey.
of related.
It is related. I had to put it. And how about mango harvest?
Bees are very important for farmers as well.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, very true, Natalie. Thank you for that.
Thank you, honey.
So, how about mango harvest? What are they saying, the boys and girls? Where do they think this is from?
Okay, we've got Nigeria, we've got Brazil, And I think Jaden is having some mangoes. That really makes me a bit hungry now. It's not
Well, I
very
think
nice to
that
show off.
both those countries would probably have mangoes. Brazil and Nigeria would have mangoes, but this particular one, I had to put this one there as well because it's very special to my heart, and this is Zimbabwe, right?
Okay.
Because I
Well,
come from
Jeremiah did
Zimbabwe.
say Africa.
All right,
And
okay, that's good. How about this one? Turnips. I had to put this one there. That's a very good clue why I put turnips there.
now you need to get this, guys, because this is the day when there's something related to the day when the certain host. So come on, guys, give us an answer, please.
Hopefully Facebook can catch up.
Percy is saying Zimbabwe. Percy.
No, Percy.
Okay, Jaden thinks Syria.
Think Syria. Okay. Well, this is where I am right now. When I introduced myself and Carrie, we said we are living in
Scotland.
Scotland. Yes.
Yay!
And here in Scotland, we call it nips.
Yeah.
We call it nips, and usually eaten with tatties, isn't it, Carrie?
Yep. And haggis.
And
if
haggis.
Fancy.
Very popular for a very certain gentleman called Robert Burns. Right. Okay, and now I had to tell you this, boys and girls, it is not in our requirements, but I thought it would be good for us to speak a little bit about this. That some farmers in most part of the world, they do what we call genetically modified foods. And some people would say genetically engineered. And what that means is, organisms like plants and animals, they are, their genetics are kind of altered in a way that is not natural. That does not happen in the organic process of how it should be. And so that isn't great for us and our bodies. It can affect human health, cause a lot of inflammation in our system and a lot of liver problems and kidney problems. And so you should be mindful, that some of the foods you may go out and buy in the supermarket, they are not the genetically modified. And USA is the largest producer of genetically modified foods. And for you to know as well that wheat was the first to be genetically modified. So you need to check if you're using your flour, that your flour is the probably organic, that is probably planted in those countries that do not use GMO foods. And some European countries, rightly so, have banned GMO foods. And France and Germany, those are the ones I know, and I think that Scotland has kind of come in that process as well. So just check your foods.
I think Kerry wanted to say something or comment.
Okay, Kerry, yes, you wanted to add something on this.
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah, I think that Scotland has been kind of debating whether we should, use more organic rather than GMO.
Yeah.
Personally, I would always kind of say if we can do things without the use of pesticides or modifying things, I think it's a lot better for us and for the environment. So yeah, I would go along with that.
Definitely. Unfortunately, there are some farmers who may use GM seeds, and then obviously because of the pollen, that may transfer to the organic farmers. So sometimes there can be that distortion. But we do try and look for organic foods as much as we can. So we come to a point, I think it's requirement number 10, that we will not speak about at length here, but I would like you boys and girls to go and do this as homework. So you need to go ahead and identify at least 10 birds of your local community or state, and state their value to the farmer. I have 2 birds on screen. These are found in Scotland, and one of them is that black bird is the hooded crow. And it's a very notorious bird because some farmers, those who have sheep, they have complained, especially in the highlands, that they've killed their young lambs. and that's been known. And so they don't like these birds, and they also uproot plants. So they don't just go and eat. They literally uproot the whole plant out of out of the ground. And so that's not good. So they're birds that have been made by God. We love them, but they can cause damage to the farming. But then the barn owl on the other side is a good bird because it is actually another way without using pesticides or insecticides, those chemicals we talked about. It is actually a pest controller because it will go and eat those pests that we don't like. So a barn owl is loved by farmers. Okay. And another one that I would like you to do is, like in the first one, I showed you the germination process. So now you go and plant your own plants. You can choose, you want to plant carrots, watercress, you want to plant lettuce. You can use cartons, you can use tubs from, finished margarines. You can use, if you finished your water, if you drink water from the bottle, just cut off the top and put some soil in it and, plant your seeds in there and at least 4 different crops and kind of monitor the germination process. So maintain a logbook and look, and also tell us in that workbook what problems you encountered in that process. Okay, and another trick that I would like you to know. This one is a fun fact, really, is that if you are planting, let's say you decide that you're going to plant some mint. This is something that you need to know. Rabbits, if you live maybe in the farms, but for those who live in the towns, maybe you might not be affected by this as much, but rabbits don't like mint. So if you plant your mint around your crops, the rabbits will not come close. They'll not even get near it. So that's just a fact that might be useful for you. Another homework is go away. If it was all okay, there was no pandemic, we're not in this COVID, I would have said physically visit a farm. But because of the situation we're in at the moment, you can go and watch a video on a farm or visit a website of your local farm or any other farm, really. Read a little bit about that, what the farmers do, what are they growing, are they rearing any animals, what are the problems they're encountering. Then you can write a little report or a paragraph of what you have learned from that website or watching that video. Okay. Now, some facts that I thought would be nice for us to kind of look at today is, there is about 72 institutions in the UK offering agricultural courses. And China has 7% of arable land, and with that, they feed at least 22% of the world's population. So they are big in farming there, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And Ukraine has the richest soil on earth. Statistics estimated that food planted on Ukraine's soil could feed the whole of Europe. We went on holiday one day, we went to Turkey, and our plane was delayed, and we had to fly to Ukraine. If I knew this, I think I would have kind of wanted to stay in Ukraine for their soil. Well, and also United States has the best climate for agriculture. Isn't it interesting that they've got the best climate, but then they're using genetically modified foods? But I don't think all of them are. I'm sure there are some farmers who are still maintaining the organic farming, so which is good to know. Now, it brings us to the end of our presentation, and I am really challenging you, boys and girls. I would like to hear someone from you in the next few years saying, guess what, Auntie Mutoko? Guess what, Kerry? I went and enrolled in an agriculture course because I want to be a farmer. And because we all eat, don't we? Each and every day, we have food in the morning, cereals, we have food in the afternoon, sandwich when you're going to school, and we have dinner. Where do you think that food comes from? Somebody has been spending all day and possibly half their night planning what they will plant, how they will keep their crops, nice and organic and nice and healthy without using pesticides or insecticides. And they look after the crop and they tender it and they make sure it's nice and healthy for you and me to put on our tables. So isn't that a wonderful, wonderful career to do? To be planting crops and rearing animals for all the other people out there. Carrie, do you have anything to say about this? Because you are actually studying this.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I study it, but I also have my allotment where I grow crops. Obviously, that's just for me and my partner, but it's so rewarding. It's such a rewarding thing to do. Even on like a small scale, it's really rewarding. And like, you're doing something for the planet as well, and you're helping people. So I would say
Yeah,
it's a very rewarding career for people.
that's amazing. And you also said you've got an allotment. How is that for you in your allotment?
Oh, it's great. Like the two of us, we go up there and it's just brilliant. I love planning all the crops every year at kind of just after Christmas time. I'll start planning just into the new year. I start planning and it's great. I'm watching, like obviously you've asked the children to grow some things from seed. It's such a brilliant process. It's so much fun actually watching things germinate, and then you pot them on and then put them outside and just watching things grow. I think it's just nice, like if you notice the simple things in life, you know.
Yeah. And,
So
there's an encouragement as well, even from the mental health perspective.
definitely, yeah. I mean, obviously, especially at the moment where we're all kind of cooped up, but it's so good for your mental health because you're just focusing on those plants and you're not thinking about all your worries or whatever's going on in your life. It just takes those worries away. So, and watching things grow, it gives you that sense of hope. If you
Yeah.
plant a seed, you're planting hope.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
And
that's a
also for
very
your physical
beautiful
health,
way of.
isn't it? That when you dig up those seeds and, I mean, sorry, the weeds, you are active, you are then, releasing the happy hormones as well
yeah,
that keep you happy. And the
yeah,
fresh air outside is keeping
that's
you
it.
enjoying life and really wanting to be outdoors most of your time.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's a win-win situation. You get food hopefully out of it. You get exercise. It makes you get those endorphins where you're feeling happy. You can enjoy the great outdoors. There's just no downside for me, really.
Wow.
Oh,
Thank you
even for
so much,
people.
Carrie.
I
so,
was
so
just going to
let me just
say,
say something that's online here. Someone was commenting, and Crystal, excellent on Facebook. Crystal, you did well to identify Scotland. That needs to be said, okay? And then Joyce says, keep mint in a container. And Tim Togo, you referred to
Yeah,
planting mint, but they say keep mint in a container, otherwise you have a hard time controlling it.
yeah.
Yes, that is very true. That is very true
Okay.
because it
Oh.
spreads so easily, doesn't it?
Yeah, and if you've got different
Oh.
varieties, keep them in separate pots. Otherwise, sometimes it can it changes the flavor of them. So
Okay, it changes the flavor. Oh,
can
yeah,
I just
well, and
can I
we've got
just
here.
mention as well, for people who may not have a garden or have
yeah,
access to allotment, that's okay because you can grow stuff in containers as well
yeah.
and popots.
Mm.
Little
You can
herbs on your windowsill.
yeah,
You
lots of
can.
options.
that is so true, Natalie, because you don't have to be, contained or to be, finding it really hard to go out there to the allotment, just in your garden. I mean, sorry, in your windowsill, just
Mhm.
Absolutely.
even, around the house,
House plants. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how I started. I didn't have a garden. I didn't have my allotment. I just had my house plants. So there's lots of ways you can grow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, guys, we want to say a big thank you to you, Antim Togo, and to Kerry.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate your time and your thorough preparation and just presenting it to us. And would love to see everybody's photos, guys. Would love to see your photos. So please send through the stuff that you've done in your gardens from some of the presentations last year. What did you do? Send the photos to Dayan, and we've got the details that are appearing there on the chart. Ntogo, did you have something to say?
Oh, that's it from us, really. Just to thank you, Kerry, for coming along and
Thank you
for
for
sharing your knowledge with us. And
not a
thank
problem.
you for the invite to present this. Thank you, Natalie and Pastor Renjay. That's us done for
Thank
today.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you. Let's unmute and give these guys a big round of applause for the guys who are here, Pathfinders. If I can just ask you to unmute and let's express our appreciation to Kerry and to Mtogo. So
Thank
well done.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, we
yeah.
are getting thanks from online as well. So great to have you guys present. Thank you very much, Mtogo and Kerry.